Hi, I'm Alex for POS Caribbean. We're going to be replacing the thermal print head on an Epson t88, as I mentioned earlier. You want to be really careful when you start removing the covers, as they are quite delicate. First off, we're going to pop open the lid as such. As you'll see in the video, we have 2 screws on either side of the cover. So we're going to start off right there. I'm going to remove that. The different screws for the different parts do vary in length. So as you start disassembling them, keep this in mind and store them separately. You don't want to mix up your screws. Alright, so these have a little bit of a lip that bites into the circular path. So you want to give it some even pressure from the middle right here so as to pop it off of there. It's a little tricky. Handle with care so you don't want to break this sheath. Right. Once it's released, pop it off, push it off to the other side, set this aside. What I always do is I put the screws from each part inside the part per se, set it aside. Alright, so you should be left with something that looks vaguely like this. They do vary a little bit between the models, but that should not be much. Alright, so next off, we're going to flip it over. Once we flipped it over, you're going to see 3 screws on the underbelly of it. Here, here, and here. And go ahead and remove all 3. And once again, set them aside separately. And remove the plate. This plate actually gives you access to some configuration pins closer to the board for future reference. Now, you also want to get rid of 3 screws that are on the inside, right there in the circles that are pictured in the middle, right there, above, and one immediately below this one, which I'm not too sure how visible it's going to be to you. So let's get to it. We got screws flying all over. So now we've just released basically the carcass from the printer. We want to go ahead and remove the bottom first. Just pull it straight off of the device as such. Set it aside. At this point, you may want to put the 3 screws that you removed from the bottom inside of it, as well as the metallic plate to assist in your reassembly, so it's not mix anything up. Important to note that in order to remove the top part of the carcass, it does need to slide over this button right here. So be careful not to force it so as to not break it. So you're going to gently nudge your fingers below it, and with a push and a pull, make sure that the carcass goes over this button right here, as pictured. Flip it aside. do the same sort of push and pull, and then you can just pull it back and away from the device. Once again, 3 screws that we removed from there, I just set them inside of that top for safekeeping. So now we're going to remove the last part of the carcass, which is this item right here. It's the sliding cover. All right. As such, the sliders, which you'll see right here, need to be pulled out of their rail as such on either side of the device before you can actually release it out. And we'll just set that aside for now. Alright, so you should be left with something that looks like this at this point. Next in line, we need to remove the screws that take care of the knife, which are right here, and inside this area here, there's another screw that you need to release. They do get a little tricky, quirky to get removed. So you want to pull on the item itself so as to assist in the removal of the screws. This will release the knife sheath, and if you flip it over, the screw should fall straight into your hand. And once again, just set it aside. Once you've released the knife frame, it'll pull up like this. You want to turn the printer completely over, give you access to the board on the bottom, and you'll just follow the cables from the knife frame into the board, and those cables will be connected to this jump right here. Pull it from the board. Remove it through the side. And you'll want to release it from the clip that's inside here as well. Alright, cable should be free. Begin to pull on the knife frame, and it'll just work itself out through this hole pictured right there. Alright, so let's set this aside. Let's put the screws on top of the knife frame, and we're almost ready to go. 4 more screws to go. We'll have these 2 here. Flip it over, and you'll have the same 2 screws over here on the other side. This will release a part of the metallic chassis that holds the whole frame in place. So we just want to wiggle that out. Do not put too much pressure on it. It's just a slight amount of pressure that you need to use, and you will remove this piece right here. Set that aside with the spore screws that we just removed. Finally, we get to see what we are going to be replacing. It's right in there. This right here is the print head, the thermal print head that we need to replace. So if you take a look at the actual frame of the printer, it has a little bit of a tooth that bites into this metallic object right here. So we're going to go ahead and push it in, and pull it up. Once you push it in, it'll just pop itself right off with these 2 springs right here. Alright, so once again, setting everything aside, print head should now be free as such. You're going to go ahead and remove this ribbon cable with much care. These are very delicate cables, so please go ahead and press it firmly on either side. You want to put your thumb on the lower portion of it or whatever's comfortable, but one finger on either side. Try to apply the pressure evenly and pull in a diagonal motion. That will release the unit itself as pictured. Alright, so now we've hopefully replaced the thermal print head successfully. I've taken the liberty of reconnecting the new one back in. I tend to use diagonal motion when connecting the ribbon cable to the thermal print head. Now I do want to stress you want to be really delicate when connecting these cables. Take as long as necessary and just make sure to not force it. It will go in smoothly. Recommend diagonal pressure once again. So if you take a look at the structure of the print head frame per se, it has these little grooves right here. These will fit into the frame. Go ahead and set that in. It'll fit into the frame right there. And just push the print head in as far as it will go. You don't need to apply any pressure, just make sure that it's snug in there. Now we're going to apply the pressure plate with the springs. So just guide that in through the rails. Oh. Guide it in through the rails once again. And leave the upper teeth right here outside for a second so you can replace the springs. Now you want to place the spring on the upper lip of the guide that's on the print head and on the lower lip of the guide that's on the pressure plate as pictured. This will ease in the installation. So once again, upper lip of the guide on the actual head and lower lip of the guide on the pressure plate. Should look vaguely like that. And with a lot of care, a lot of patience, just push it in and you'll hear the two snaps and the thermal print head and the pressure plate will be back into position. Make sure everything is snug. Give it a couple of pushes here. Make sure the springs don't pop out. And if it's looking snug, not popping out, we'll go ahead and continue with our reassembly. Next up is the plate right here. You want to place it inside and make sure this triangular lip right here goes under the base frame. Once again, do not use force. Just, it's a little bit of a gamble here. There we go. All right. And replace the 4 screws. Don't tighten these screws as yet. We're going to tighten them once we have replaced the knife head. You want to make sure that your top lid is completely open before replacing this knife frame. If you've replaced the knife frame with the lid closed, then the lid will not open and you'll have to start again. Righty. So replace the knife frame. Now we can go ahead and close that lid. We're basically done. Now we're just going to give it its cosmetic carcass back. Place the bottom first. Make sure it's snug, make sure you have access to your power. Then you flip it over. Replace the plate. As well as the screws on the upper middle and the lower left. Once again, just gentle pressure. So you'll have replaced this, and this screw right there. Flip the device over. And now we want to put the slider back into position. Make sure it slides correctly. The upper portion of the carcass will go in from back to front. Now once again, mind you that the release button needs to be slightly pushed in. And once it's into position, the release button will just click into place. Now we just have to replace the 3 screws that go in the middle. We are almost done. I'm going to open the printer. All right. Been replaced. When replacing this, you want to make sure that the curved side goes towards the back. So go ahead and replace the part. Once again, just very slight pressure, and it'll clip into position. Once it's clipped into position, we'll just go ahead and replace the screws. Once you've replaced the screws, close it, open it, make sure you have access to the power right here. And if everything is sealed, looking correctly, it's opening and closing, the slider is going in and out, we can call this job a success. Thank you for your time. I hope this guide has been of assistance. If you have any doubts in the assembly or disassembly, any repair questions for this device, you can email me. My email address will be displayed shortly after. Once again, thank you.